Hello viewers, welcome to Civil Engineering Lectures by Government Polytechnic Kottagudem, Civil Engineering Department. Today's discussion we are having on limit state of collapse in shear part 2. We have been discussing about shear in our earlier classes. So in this class we will be discussing about furthermore topics and concepts which are involved in the limit state of collapse shear. So as a part of our regular revision before the beginning of the class, let us quickly revise what has happened in the previous sessions about shear and also a fast revision on the initial concepts of our limit state method. So in the limit state method, we have been designing our structural elements under collapse and serviceability. Collapse will be designing structures for flexure, for shear, for compression and for torsion, and serviceability is the criteria or as a part of check for the structures. Limit state of serviceability has been provided for crack width, temperature, vibrations, deflections and other checks in order to check the serviceability of the structural members. So in that way we have been proceeding our discussions in the limit state method by beginning with the stress block parameters, by understanding the stress block parameters thoroughly for the structural members of concrete and steel, and then mounting these behavior of concrete and steel in the cross sections, and then trying to derive the formulas or the values of the stress blocks, and then we have understood the derivations properly and thoroughly for remembering these values so that we will not forget them, and then we have understood how these concepts have arisen, what are the basic terminology that was involved in the limit state method, and also the normal distribution curve and the Gaussian curve, which was talking about the characteristic strength values and how the characteristic term has been accompanied with all the design parameters such as the load and the strengths, and why this value has been accompanying them and what that value is pointing towards or what the term is pointing towards. So these were the concepts which we have learnt initially, and hopefully I assume that all the viewers who have been viewing the lectures are thorough with those concepts of the stress block parameters and also have thorough knowledge in understanding the initial concepts which were driving us towards the next sessions of ours. So why we have to revise them in each and every class is that those become the foundation of the lectures or the sessions which we are going to discuss in our due course of time and also in the forthcoming classes. These lectures of the stress block parameters and as well as the initial concepts will actually be the foundation of the session of every class. These concepts of the stress block parameters and also the derivations which were involving the grades of concrete and the grades of steel, the understanding behind them and the logics and also the assumptions which were assumed in the limit state method, how IS 456 2000 has been regulating our designs, everything has to be understood thoroughly, and they have been the prime concepts which will be ensuring us to understand the forthcoming sessions also. So in the class of today also, these parameters which you have learned will lay an impact in understanding the session of today. So in each and every session we have been discussing right from the beginning, right from the first class, because the first few sessions which we have studied will be the actual foundation of your subject. Once you understand those preliminary topics and preliminary sessions which were actually discussing about the philosophies of the limit state method and the concepts that are involved in the limit state method, those will actually tell you, or those will actually determine how much concepts you have learned and how much understanding you have. And also, the point here is that only after thorough understanding of those lectures only you can understand the upcoming sessions. So that is the reason behind why we have been revising right from the beginning of our first class. So let us see how limit state of collapse is designed under shear, for what members, and what are the concepts that we are going to learn today. So in the previous class we have seen that when a beam is subjected to transverse loads, these loads will induce bending moment and shear force in the cross section of the member. So as a result, the member will also try to generate resistance as an action of reciprocation to the loads that are acting on the structural element. So these loads which are creating bending moment and shear force are to be addressed by the beam itself. We have seen in the design of rectangular beams and also flanged beams how the beams are going to generate the moment of resistance as a reaction to the bending moment which is being generated by the external loads. We have seen the concepts, we have also analyzed beams, and we have also tried to design few beams for resisting the bending moment. That is why we have designed those structures under limit state of collapse flexure, because there the primary force or the primary action is because of bending. So we have learned the concepts and how the design has been done for addressing the bending moment has been discussed in our previous sessions. So now we have come to a point where shear has to be discussed for a beam. So since yesterday we have been trying to address this shear by understanding the behavior of this shear stress along the cross section of the beam. So first what we have did is we have taken a beam which is undergoing transverse loading. So as a result of this loading, the beam is undergoing bending moment and shear force. So we have taken various sections and then we have analyzed. Prior to that we have studied about the shear stress distribution which has been learnt in our strength of materials while we were discussing about the shear forces in the subject of strength of materials. There what we have learnt is that the shear stress is determined by the formula VA y bar by I into B, where V stands for the shear force, A stands for the area above the section where you are trying to find out the shear stress, and y bar is the centroid of the area above the section where you are trying to find out the shear stress from the neutral axis, and I is the moment of inertia of the shape of the cross section, and B is the width of the cross section where you want to find out the shear stress. So this was the formula for finding out the shear stress in your strength of materials at any cross section or at any section. And then strength of materials have told that the distribution of shear stress is going to be parabolic along the cross section of a beam. So this was modified in our reinforced concrete structures. So when we try to mount the concept of strength of materials in the reinforced concrete structures, the first thing in terms of distribution what we have observed is, as reinforced concrete structures are composite materials, that means reinforced concrete structures are heterogeneous in nature. There are two materials involved in the reinforced concrete structure, one is concrete and steel. The distribution of shear is little different. What we have noted in that is that the neutral axis is going to separate the compression zone and the tension zone. So here the neutral axis is going to play a crucial role in the shear stress distribution, because neutral axis is the plane which is going to divide or separate the compression zone and the tension zone. So once we have identified the compression zone and tension zone which is being separated by the neutral axis, in the compression zone the concrete is strong and in the tension zone the steel is strong. So when we have taken the case of concrete, that means in the compression zone the cross section is going to play a role. So when the cross section is going to play a role, the shear stress distribution is going to vary along with the width. The shear stress increases with the decrease in width and the shear stress decreases with the increase in width. So in that way, above the neutral axis the shape was like a parabola, and below the neutral axis the shape was a rectangular one, because below the neutral axis the cross section is not going to play an important role anymore, but whereas the reinforcement that is provided is going to play a role. Why this has happened is we have discussed in yesterday's class, and we have gave a justification for this point by saying that below the neutral axis IS 456 2000 has assumed that the concrete, though present in the tension zone, it is assumed to be cracked, and that concrete is not going to take up any tension. So this was given by an assumption which says that the tensile strength of concrete is ignored. That means the concrete which is present in the tension zone is already cracked. So that is how the distribution of the shear stress has been changed compared to the distribution which you have studied in your strength of materials and then in your reinforced concrete structures. So in that way, after reaching a maximum value at the neutral axis, the same value is going to be continued in the tension zone also, giving rise to the shape of a rectangular distribution below the neutral axis. So this was studied. So first, after understanding the shear stress distribution according to the reinforced concrete structures, then we have tried to understand the types of failures, and also we have discussed about diagonal tension failure. So as diagonal tension failure is very important for understanding shear, and that accounts to the most of the concept in the shear design, so let us just have a look on it, and then we will move on to the topic of today. So we will again try to understand how diagonal tension failure is arising. It has been already discussed in yesterday's class, but as a part of revision, let us just quickly go through the concept of diagonal tension, how it is arising, and then we can see the critical cross section for shear, and also how the shear strength of concrete is generated without shear reinforcement. So in today's class you will be learning about the lesson explains the different shear strengths of concrete, how the shear strength of concrete is being generated, what are the different shear strengths of concrete, and how the shear strengths of concretes are generated, and what are the critical sections for shear and the minimum shear reinforcement to be provided in the beam as per IS 456. So in this class today you will be learning about the critical sections and the shear strength that the concrete is going to generate without having shear reinforcement. So the effect of shear diagonal tension plays a very important role here. So what we have did is we have taken a simply supported beam which is having a UDL. So when a simply supported beam is undergoing UDL, the maximum bending moment will be occurring at the midspan. Because the loading is symmetrical, the maximum bending moment will be occurring at the midspan, where the shear force is becoming 0. So what you can notice here is that the beam is considered in 3 parts. That means you see here 2, 1 and 3 are the 3 positions where we are going to talk about shear. So in the part 2 of the beam, you can see that shear force is 0 and the bending moment is maximum, because that is the midspan of the beam. Whereas at point 1 in the beam, what you can understand is that is the region where both shear force and bending moment is occurring. So the element or the beam will be undergoing both shear force and bending moment in that zone. but when you see at point 3 of the beam, that means very close to the support, what you can observe there is the bending moment is almost tending to 0. So when the bending moment is tending to 0, you can also see from the shear force diagram of simply supported beam carrying UDL, what you can understand there is the shear force is the maximum value because of the reaction that is being provided by the support. So at the support the shear force is maximum and the bending moment is 0, and at the midspan the bending moment is maximum and the shear force is 0. In between these two points there is another point 3 where point 1 where there is a little amount of shear force and also there is a certain considerable amount of bending moment at the point 1. So when we consider the element, the maximum bending moment in this beam will be at the midspan and the maximum shear force is at the supports. So that is what we have just seen. The beam is subjected to bending and shear stresses across the cross section. So we have considered elements in 3 different zones across the beam. So let us consider a small element 1 from the tensile zone of the beam. Also what you have to observe is that you can see dotted line here. This dotted line is representing the neutral axis. So the zone above the neutral axis is the compression zone and the zone below the neutral axis is the tensile zone. So what you have seen from here is we have taken the point 1 from the tension zone. You can see the element point 1 is lying below the neutral axis. That means it is taken in the tension zone. So this element will be undergoing the force system of both bending tension and as well as shear. So when that element 1 in the part of the beam is zoomed, what you can observe here is that it is undergoing system of forces. The bending tension, sigma stands for the axial force which is caused by the bending, represented as sigma bending tension, and tau which is the shear force. So here you can see actually tau will be coming only in the downward direction because the load is acting in the downward direction. The shear stress will also be coming in the downward direction. But what happens is, because this layer is attached to the adjacent layer, as there is a force coming in the downward direction, in order to retain the equilibrium, the same amount of shear force will be acting in the opposite direction as a response to that action. So when these two forces have come into picture, these two are having the same magnitude but opposite in direction. This forms a couple. So these two are forming a couple by having same magnitude and opposite in direction. So this couple will also try to disturb the equilibrium of the particular element. So in order to retain the equilibrium again, so as it is creating a couple in the clockwise direction, an anti-clockwise couple will be generated as a response to this couple in order to retain the equilibrium. So that is why you are seeing a couple in this direction. So when they are creating a couple in this direction, they are having a couple in this direction. See. So that is why these two have formed. So initially there was only one downward shear which was coming because of the action of loads, and in order to stop this, in order to create response to this has come into picture, and when these two have started creating a couple, in order to counteract that couple, there was an anti-clockwise couple in the other direction. So this is how the shear stress and the shear force and the bending tension has been shown in the system of forces of the element 1. Now what happens is, if you see here at the midspan, as the shear force is 0 and the bending moment is maximum, the element 2, if you see the element 2 here, what happened here is you will not find the shear forces in that element. Why? Because it is at the midspan, the shear force is becoming 0, so the shear forces is not shown in the system of forces. You can find only the bending tension, that is sigma max here. As there is bending maximum at the midspan, this bending maximum will create tension in the zone which is below the neutral axis. So this tensile zone will try to split the cross section into two parts. So in the pursuit of splitting the cross section into two parts, it will create a crack at an angle of 90 degrees. So the element 2 is subjected to maximum bending tensile stress only in this case. This tensile stress tries to pull apart the section as shown in the figure, and the crack developed is vertical. So at the maximum bending moment point, you will find a crack at an angle of 90 degrees. So whenever you see a crack at an angle of 90 degrees, that is because of bending tension. So these cracks will be generally occurring at the midspan, because at the midspan the bending moment is maximum. So when you consider the element 3, that means at the support, what we have noticed is that at the support the shear force is going to be maximum and the bending moment is going to be 0. So when you see in the diagram, the system of forces are represented only by the shear forces here. See, this is tau max, so you can see only tau max being shown in the system of forces, because at the support there is no bending moment for a simply supported beam. So as this shear forces are creating shear stresses, what the shear stresses are trying to do is that at the support the bending moment is 0 and the shear force is maximum. Thus the element 3 is subjected to maximum shear stress and no bending stresses as shown. So you are not finding any bending stresses in the diagram shown here. What these shear stresses will do is that if you see, these two are the diagonals, ij and jk. This is I and j. Ij and jk will form the diagonals here. So what happens is, when the shear stress is coming in this section, this diagonal, if you see these two forces, these will try to pull this diagonal, and these two shear stresses will try to pull this diagonal. So this diagonal will be under tension. So if you see here, this diagonal has expanded, that diagonal will be under tension. That means the diagonal ij will be under tension. Then the other diagonal in this direction will be under compression because of the Poisson's effect. Poisson has told that when one dimension is increasing, the dimension in the mutually perpendicular direction will decrease. So when this diagonal is expanding, the other diagonal will undergo compression. So when this diagonal is undergoing tension, what happens is that concrete is weak in tension. Concrete cannot take any tension, and also IS 456-2000 has assumed that the tensile strength of concrete is ignored. So this generates a 45 degrees crack when the diagonal has been stretched, and it leads to the failure of concrete, which is a sudden failure and which is not at all suggestible. So this diagonal tension failure is very critical. You have to avoid this diagonal tension failure. So this diagonal tension failure is accompanied with a 45 degrees crack, as you can notice here, because it takes the direction along the diagonal. A diagonal of a square generally lies at an angle of 45 degrees. So that is why you can see a crack generated at an angle of 45 degrees. So this is the behavior of the element 3. So you have understood the behavior of element 1, element 2 and element 3, where element 2, which is at the midspan, will be undergoing only flexure, and that creates a vertically perpendicular 90 degrees crack. And the element 3, which is at the support, where only shear force is coming, that element is undergoing diagonal tension failure, and the diagonal tension cracks will be originating for the element 3 at the support. So due to this stress condition, the diagonal IK of the element is subjected to tensile stresses as shown in the figure. As the concrete is very weak in tension, it splits along the diagonal at 45 degrees and develops the cracks as shown. So you have seen how the cracks are developing when the structural element is undergoing flexure at the midspan and shear at the support. So the tension which is caused in the tensile zone of the beam due to the shear at or near the support is called as diagonal tension. So this diagonal tension failure has to be eliminated, or this is not at all suggestible to come in the cross section of the beam, because diagonal tension will create a tension failure in the concrete, which leads to a sudden and brittle failure. which is caused by shear and cannot be resisted by concrete alone. So shear reinforcement is provided in the RCC beam to take up the diagonal tension and prevent the cracking of the beam. So shear reinforcement has to be provided to account for this diagonal tension. So diagonal tension failure has to be avoided. So shear reinforcement is taken in order to account for this diagonal tension failure. Now if you see the crack patterns consolidatedly in one single diagram, you can see here the diagonal tension cracks originating near the supports, close to the supports, and the perpendicular cracks, these are originating close to the midspan. So these are the perpendicular cracks which are called as the flexural shear cracks, flexural cracks. So these are the flexural shear cracks because in this zone both flexure and shear both will be predominant. So these will be at an angle of 30 degrees and so on. These will be at an angle of 90 degrees, but if you see here, these will be at an angle of 45 degrees, which is the angle made by the diagonal of the cross section. So these are the crack patterns which you can observe in the beam, and you also know the reason behind these cracks. At or near the midspan, the crack will be vertical, and those cracks are called as flexural cracks. At or near the support, the cracks are inclined at 45 degrees, so those cracks are called as diagonal tension cracks. In between the supports and midspan, the cracks inclination vary from 45 degrees to 90 degrees, so these cracks are called as flexural shear cracks. So this is how shear is going to create its effect in the cross section of the beam. So now we have seen till now what are the effects that are caused by the shear force which is coming in the beam as a response to the loads that are being acting on the beam. So what is the damage it is going to create, which damage is to be considered risky, and what are the different modes of failure, and what are the modes of cracks that have originated, that we have seen. So now we will be talking about the strength which is being generated by the concrete. So design shear strength of concrete is generated without the reinforcement. So in the recent laboratory experiments confirmed that reinforced concrete in beams has shear strength even without any shear reinforcement. So these have shear strength as an inbuilt factor without any shear reinforcement. Reinforced concrete has shear strength without any shear reinforcement. That means the strength of the reinforcement is somehow established without placing the shear reinforcement. So how this strength has come in the reinforced concrete, that we will going to see. This shear strength tau c depends upon the grade of concrete and the percentage of tension steel in the beam. The value of tau c, that is tau c here stands for the shear strength without shear reinforcement, depends upon the grade of concrete and the percentage of tension steel. So this is the shear strength of concrete. Shear strength of concrete is given by tau c. On the other hand, the shear strength of reinforced concrete with the reinforcement is restricted to some maximum value. So this tau c value, that means shear strength of concrete without shear reinforcement, is restricted to a certain value, tau c max, depending upon the grade of concrete. So these minimum and maximum shear strengths of reinforced concrete, IS 456 clauses 40.2.1 and clause 40.2.3 will talk about the minimum and the maximum value of shear strength. That means the value of tau c and the value of tau c max. What we have understood from these two slides is that tau c is the shear strength of concrete without diagonal compression failure, and tau c max is the maximum shear strength which will cause the diagonal compression failure. So the tau c max values which we have seen, those tau c max values should never be crossed because that will cause the diagonal compression failure. So beyond tau c it will undergo diagonal tension failure. So you can stop the diagonal tension failure by providing for the shear in the form of stirrups, but you have to see that the diagonal compression failure is never reached. That is, the tau c max value should not be reached. So tau c max is very risky because that is going to create the diagonal compression failure. In case if you have diagonal tension failure, you can address the diagonal tension failure by providing the stirrups in the respective spacing to encounter the diagonal tension failure. So this tau c, the shear strength without shear reinforcement, is attributed by the number 1 is the Dowell action, number 2 aggregate interlocking, and the number 3 is the uncracked concrete in the compression zone. Now what happens is that the shear strength of concrete is somehow attributed by the Dowell action. Dowell action is nothing but the reinforcement which is placed in the tension zone will act as the support for the concrete. See, as the load is happening along the transverse direction for a beam, what happens is that the load will be first hitting the concrete present here, because the reinforcement is placed at the bottom. First this load will try to create an impact on the concrete. So this concrete, because it is confined, so and it is also supported by the steel at the bottom, this concrete can generate that reaction more stronger, and it can reciprocate to how much ever the load is occurring at that point. So because this steel is acting as a confinement and also as a support to the concrete above it, it can have a strength for reacting the shear. So that is how this Dowell action is nothing but the supportive action which was given by the steel to the concrete. So this Dowell action, or the support which is provided by the steel, will attribute to a part of the shear strength to the concrete. And the second one is the aggregate interlocking. What happens here is, because the concrete is being cured for so long, and also concrete is formed by the the aggregates, that means the coarse aggregate. What happens is that the coarse aggregate and fine aggregates role in the concrete is for creating less number of voids by getting interlocked in the spaces that are available. So as the curing happens, as the curing goes on, the aggregates, the fine aggregates and the coarse aggregate will try to take up to the smaller portions. That means they will try to fill the voids by getting properly interlocked. So this aggregate interlocking will not allow the crack to generate, because if the crack is trying to generate this way, because there are aggregates that are present by interlocking here, those aggregates will create a lot of strength and that will not allow the crack to generate. So that is how aggregate interlocking will attribute to the shear strength of concrete. Aggregates which are present in the concrete, that means the fine aggregate and the coarse aggregates, which are bound together by cement, they will be bounded by taking up the voids which are present in the mixture. So when thorough mixing is done, the aggregates will get interlocked in the voids or the spaces that are available by thoroughly mixing them. So this interlocking of the aggregates will provide for the shear strength of concrete. And also uncracked concrete present in the compression zone. So what you have to see here is that because of the bending moment, already there may be some part of concrete which has got cracked, but there is a certain amount of concrete which is still has to be cracked. So that uncracked concrete which is present, that concrete will also participate in giving some resistance. So that uncracked concrete has to be considered in providing the resistance. It cannot be neglected, because that is confined and also it has a lot of strength. So that is how the uncracked concrete will also participate in giving some shear strength for the forces that are coming against it. So these three parameters, the Dowell action, the aggregate interlocking, and uncracked concrete in the compression zone, put together will attribute to the shear strength of concrete without any shear reinforcement. Dowell action is the supportive action that is provided by the steel reinforcement that is provided at the bottom in the tension zone. So the steel reinforcement will act as a base, a strong base to the concrete which is provided above the reinforcement, and when the load which is coming in contact with the concrete primarily, that will try to push the concrete below, but as the concrete is being laid on the steel will act as a support, and that will be sufficient enough to provide the reaction or the required strength for counteracting that force in the opposite direction. So Dowell action is the supportive action. And then aggregate interlocking, because the aggregates which were combined by using the cement which has been bonded together tightly by undergoing a lot of curing, and the aggregates which are being interlocked because of their flakiness and elongated particles which are being used as coarse aggregate, these aggregate interlocking will not allow the cracks to generate, and they will try to arrest the crack. And then in the third one, the uncracked concrete in the compression zone, as there is certain amount of uncracked concrete, a considerable amount, which can also participate in giving some reaction to the shear. So all these three put together will generate the shear strength of concrete, which is the tau c. So table 19 of IS 456 stipulates the design shear strength of concrete tau c for different grades of concrete with a wide range of percentage of positive tensile steel reinforcement. So by considering these three parameters, the Doval action, the aggregate interlocking, and the uncracked concrete in the compression zone, by considering these three parameters, tau c values are tabulated by experimental process in IS 456 2000. So this tau c value, if you see, that depends upon the grade of concrete and the positive reinforcement, that is the tensile reinforcement that is being placed in the tension zone. So basing upon these two values, you have the tau c value. So it is worth mentioning that the reinforced concrete beams must be provided with the minimum shear reinforcement as per clause 40.3 even when tau v is less than tau c given in the table. So what here this point says is that though the shear force that is coming on the beam is less than the shear strength that is generated by the beam, so the force is less than the stress, the strength being generated by the beam, still you have to go for minimum reinforcement. So minimum reinforcement is mandatory for the shear. Though the shear strength which is generated by the concrete is sufficient enough to tackle the shear force that is being generated by the external loads, still you have to go for the placement of certain shear reinforcement along the cross section in order to have a confinement, and also for other secondary stresses that are going to come accidentally. So that is what is the clause 40.3 mentioning. You have to go for minimum shear reinforcement at any cost, even though there is lesser values of shear. So these are the design shear strength of concretes given in the IS 456 2000. If you see, there are different grades of concrete, and also you have the percentage of steel, 100 AS by BD. 100 AS by BD is the percentage of steel. AS stands for the longitudinal reinforcement provided in the positive zone, that is in the tensile zone, and B into D is the cross section of the beam. So for different percentages of steel, you have, for different grades of concrete, you have the values of tau c. So these are the values of tau c which you can take from the table 6.1. So in the table 6.1, AS is the area of the longitudinal reinforcement. See, the area AS which you are seeing here, is the area of the longitudinal tension reinforcement which continues at least one effective depth beyond the section considered, except at support where the full area of tension reinforcement may be used, provided the detailing is as per IS 456 clause number 26.2.2 and 26.2.3. What that means to say is that AS is the area of the tension reinforcement, because there is some curtailment that is being done wherever the bending moment is becoming less, or wherever the bending moment is not more effective or predominant. There we have curtailment of the steel rods which are placed in the tension zone. So you have to consider them also wherever you want to place the reinforcement, or if you want to find out the shear strength of the concrete, you have to see the area of steel at that particular section. Now the maximum value of this shear stress, I have told you there is a second value of tau c max. So tau c max is that the maximum shear stress that a beam can take is this value. So if the shear stress that is coming on the beam is crossing this value, the beam will undergo diagonal compression failure. So a beam or concrete can take a shear stress up to this much value, which is termed as the tau c max. So table 20 of IS 456 stipulates the maximum shear stress of reinforced concrete in beams tau c max as given below in the table. So under no circumstances the nominal shear stress in beams tau v shall exceed tau c max. So in no circumstances tau c max value should not be exceeded, because tau c max is the value of shear stress that concrete cannot take as it undergoes diagonal compression failure. So the tau c max values are also given for different grades of concrete. You should note here that all the tau c values are related to the grade of concrete mostly, because concrete by means of dowel action, aggregate interlocking and uncracked concrete present in the compression zone, these parameters are attributing to the strength, shear strength of the concrete. So that is why all the values of tau c and tau c max are related to the grades of concrete. Now the critical section for shear. So which section is treated as the critical one? Which section has to be checked whether there is adequate shear reinforcement or not? If that section is having adequate shear reinforcement, then no doubt the other sections will be having. So this is the critical section which has to be checked for shear. That is what is the meaning of critical section. So clauses 22.6.2 and 22.6.2.1 stipulate the critical section for shear, and which are given as follows. So 22.6.2 and the 22.6.21 clauses of IS 456-2000 will talk about the critical sections which are to be considered for shear. For beams generally subjected to UDL, or where the principal load is located farther than 2D from the face of the support, where D is the effective depth of the beam, the critical section depends upon the conditions of supports as shown in the figure. So basing upon the loads that are coming on the beams, that means in case if a beam is undergoing UDL, or when a beam is having a load which is at a distance of 2 times the effective depth of the beam from the face of the support, then the critical sections are given in the figure. You can see here in the you have seen for this one and for this one and also for the other one, you can see here. So what it says is that when the reaction in the direction of the applied shear introduces tension into the end region of the member, the shear force is to be computed at the face of the support of the member at that section. What this point means to say is that when the reaction in the direction of the applied shear, when the reaction in the applied shear, see, whenever shear force is coming on the beam, as a reciprocation to that force, the reaction will be generated automatically by the support. So if this reaction to the shear force is causing tension along the region of the member, then the shear force which is computed must be considered at the face of the support. So if you see in this diagram, the load is happening this way. This is the applied load. So this applied load, for this applied load, the reaction will be in this direction. So what it is happening is that the reaction is causing tension here. So this reaction is causing tensile force. See, this is pulling this way, this is trying to pull this way. So this is going to create tension in this zone. For this type of loading, when the reaction is causing tension, it is creating tension at the section. So the critical section for shear will be at the face of the support. You can see the dotted line here. You can see the dotted line. So the dotted line is taken at the face of the support. So this dotted line will be the critical section for shear when the reaction for the external force is causing tension. When the reaction in the direction of the applied shear introduces compression into the end region of the member, the shear force computed at a distance D from the face of the support is to be used for the design of sections located at a distance less than D from the face of the support. In case if the reaction for the shear force is creating compression into the end region of the member, if you see in the end region of the member, this case if you see, the load is happening this way. The load is happening this way, the reaction is caused this way. So what this is creating is that both are in the mutually opposite directions. That means you can see this is creating a compressive force this way. So this is called as compression. So when the reaction to the shear force is causing compression at the end of the member, then the critical section will be taken at a distance of d from the face of the support. So when the reaction to the shear force is creating compression at the end of the member, then the critical sections to be taken at the distance of d from the face of the support. You can see here also, in this case also, you are having this reaction is created this way and the load is happening this way. So as these two are creating compression, the critical sections are taken at distance d from the faces of the support. You have to remember, if the reaction caused as because of the external force, external shear force, if the reaction caused is creating tension, then the critical section will be at the face of the support. If the reaction that is caused as a response to the force is creating compression, then the critical section for shear will be at a distance of d from the face of the support. So these are the critical sections for calculation of the shear stresses and where the shear reinforcement has to be checked. So today's class you have understood how the shear strength is being generated by concrete and what are the maximum shear strength values, what is diagonal compression failure, and also what is diagonal tension failure. And also you have understood what are the critical sections to be considered, where the critical sections to be considered for different conditions of the reactions. So thank you for viewing the lecture. Have a nice day.